am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Today, our guest is Jeff Thomson, the CEO and president of IMA, the Institute of Management Accountants. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us today. And I'd love for you to start off and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here on your podcast. And yes, I am president and CEO of it's actually the Institute of Management Accountants. And we're a membership organization, a global membership organization. We focus on educating, certifying, connecting future CFOs, members of the CFO team in industry, any size, any structure, company, anywhere in the world. And, actually the role of the CFO team in business has really magnified and become much more interdisciplinary and cross-functional, business partnering, influencing business growth, great outcomes for consumers, profit and purpose. So the days of the CFO being that boring accountant just tying the numbers together, as you know from your experience, has long evolved where that has become the table stakes for enriching and creating value using, talent and people as an ecosystem. So, at a high level, that's IMA, 140,000 members around the world, and we're very proud of our world-class certification, the CMA Certified Management Accountant, of which I am one of 70,000 or so who have been awarded since inception.
Wow. Yeah, and that really is what today's talk is about, to really learn about your story and what you've also been seeing as far as change, because a lot of what we kind of think changes might be technology or change management or business processes or even change in our personal lives. However, what really happens is we have to go through our own personal evolution through our career of morphing and pivoting and figuring out, what was our original belief systems that we had and how do we overcome that or really take notice that we even have it when we need to start thinking about different pivots we need to make in our career. So I'd love to learn a little bit about your career and where you might have had that moment in your path where there was a pivot or change or recognition of something that you needed to work on to move forward.
Yeah, and absolutely. And one of my pivots started very early in my career. So here I am. I've got, I think one of the best jobs in the whole wide world, and you could share that with my board members, but many of whom you met. But seriously, I'm a big believer. There's, and these are basic tenets I know and sound very trite, but I think we as human beings we tend to sometimes make excuses that change is not within our control. Mm-hmm. There's environmental factors, there's robotics, there's a family member who I can't manage or control, and I tend to think that there's more under our control than we can even ever imagine. And so my early pivot started when, so I was always kind of a math statistics person, very technical, quantitative. I know we kind of get typecast into thinking that that's all it's about, but being in the math and sciences, you actually become a bit of an explorer. And so, there's a little typecasting there, but so that part was very clear. I was good in math and statistics through high school. That was my major in college and then graduate school. But along that way, I had to say, all right, what's my career going to be? And, I actually decided to go into the teaching program undergraduate. And one of the primary reasons that I wanted to become a teacher is because I'm inherently shy. And although, of course, teaching has an incredible societal purpose and virtues, I've been married to a teacher. Quite frankly, I said to myself, I ultimately see myself in a business role. In my role as president and CEO of IMA, I talk around the world. I'm going to the Middle East next month. I've been in China. We have offices there. And by definition, it's a public speaking role. But I knew way back then that, I'm inherently shy. I still get a little bit of tingle and nervousness in front of a large group.
Sure.
I kind of think it's natural.
Yeah.
But I said to myself, what better way to overcome my inherent shyness than going through a teaching program to be a math teacher? I did student teaching, and if nothing will eliminate your shyness than being in front of 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds at 7:22 in the morning, trying to teach them high school math, nothing will get you over shyness. So I went through the student teaching to the point where I did make a choice early on to go into industry. But I really do think that recognition of where I needed to strengthen, if I were to look at my future and not say, well, I'm naturally shy, so I'm going to stay away from anything that involves public speaking. I do think there is so much more under your control as a human being, and seize control where you need to make it happen. You talk a lot in, Business Balance and Bliss about taking control and breaking away or seizing opportunity to fill gaps. And, to this day, even though I'm still inherently shy and still nervous in front of big groups, it's like you wouldn't know it, right? Because of that decision early on to say, you put yourself in front of a bunch of 15-year-olds at 7 in the morning.
Let them rip you apart,
Right. And they just love math and algebra.
Exactly. So I would love to just go a little bit deeper into that, because I think it's such an important revelation that you had about yourself. And what I notice a lot of times, when you talk about, people blame the outside or, create reasons for why they can't push past things. When was it that you started branding yourself as shy? Like, was it someone that gave you the reason that you're shy? Did you decide you're shy? Like, can you kind of tap into, like, why did you even think that about yourself and kind of started going down that path before you break it?
Let me count the ways as, in grade school and high school. Let me count the ways. Skinny, scrawny, academic, there is a lot of, I think things are more out in the open today than back when I was, in high school, in formative years, way back in the day. At least we had the courage to, use words like bullying and the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff. Back over time, it was almost like these things were the rites of passage, to be a cool high school kid. You were, on the football team, or you were a cheerleader, or, and some of these still hold true today, because I did teach after my AT&T career. I did wind up go back and teach high school math. But, there are these certain peer pressure norms, and, what is cool is, was and maybe is, being on the football team, being a cheerleader. What was not so cool was being, a high achiever scholastically. My family background, I from the day I was born, my older brother is a, minimal brain damage. So I was always
Oh, wow.
like in the position of caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
Today I'm a caregiver. So I was always shy externally because of, some of the norms at the time that made you cool or not so cool. So why call attention to myself? I mean, I'm probably actually a better than average athlete, but not good enough to take notice. And then, I became a little bit more inward because, from the age of 11 or 12 with an older brother who's emotionally disturbed and causing all kinds of disruption, I had to be a source of strength for my mom and my dad. And so I'm like, you know what? If I'm shy externally, I'm going to be strong internally and for my little ecosystem of family members. So, and I'm very sensitive even today to, to the secondary school environment. I mentioned or alluded to the fact that my wife who's now retired, which is another set of stories. But, she was a high school math teacher and guidance counselor. And so between my experiences in secondary school, between her experiences, between me late career becoming a high school math teacher, the incredible pressure we put on kids, some intended, some not intended, sometimes creates these stigmas. And I'm not sure, sometimes when I use the word stigma, I don't feel I was stigmatized or victimized, but you asked the question in terms of, what kind of...
we start creating an internal story of ourselves. And then, because I think many people, from the outside, and I just love that you shared this story with everybody, because from the outside, you have so much success running this huge organization, and people don't realize the stories we carry with us, and every time we get on stage, and what we need to do and what we've overcome. And one of the things that you talked about was listening to that inner voice that you are strong. And I think that's such an important thing as people go through change, that they're listening to that intuitive voice, not necessarily the outside voices and what people are saying or think or whatever, but that intuitive voice of saying, I am strong enough. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then there's going to come a time when I'm ready to make this pivot. And so you decided to do, so was it that internal voice that once you got to college that you were like, I'm going to overcome this, I'm going to change the course? What was it that clicked for you that you wanted to make that change? I understand from being shy, but something else powerful was within you to even take that step, because that's a really hard change.
No, I mean, that's a great question. And it's, so I've been a caregiver from an early age, as I mentioned, and by caregiver, maybe emotion giver. I was always very, very close to my mom. She was dealing with some challenges with my dad and my older brother, who is, classified as minimally brain damaged, and, made a decision to keep him in the house. And so from a very early age, I'm not even sure caregiver is the right term, but from a very, very early age, maybe because I wasn't the coolest kid, didn't have a lot of external interfaces or engagements with having, I never had a lot of friends. In fact, to this day, I say that all of my friends today are through my wife, because she's very social.
I think that's kind of normal.
But so and to this day, later on this afternoon, I'm going to be taking my older brother out, that same older brother, because now my parents are gone and we have a way to make sure he's taken care of. So I'm not even sure I remember my childhood the way you were, sometimes, friends and parties and things. I almost feel like I skipped that part of it, but it was sort of that sense of purpose that, I've got a challenge and an opportunity here, even as an 11-year-old, to step up now as a, few decades later, stepping up. And it is about being strong, but when you're a caregiver, and even as, this great opportunity I have with IMA being the CEO of, a pretty large organization, people look to you. They're watching you all the time, and it's great to be strong and self-confident, but if you don't take care of yourself and let go of things that maybe are no longer fit for purpose, or add things that are fit for purpose, as the point person, whether it's for my mom, my brother, my team here, if you don't sort of admit your frailties and your vulnerabilities, then you, as the primary caregiver or chief inspirer or whatever it is, then you got to take care of yourself too.
Yeah,
sounds selfish, but I think it's even more prominent here.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things that I think are assumed to be selfish, but when we're not good for ourselves, we aren't good for the people around us.
Right.
And I think what you shared, like a lot of people, especially in the accounting finance profession, may go in originally into this profession maybe because they feel they branded themselves as introverted or shy, or good at math. And as change comes, like any profession with technology is disrupting so many professions today. These are the moments to understand like why we're branding ourselves the way we are. And then so one of the things that you pulled out was, but I'm a caregiver. And as a caregiver, how is that my strength to use with clients, with internal staff, with a leader, and so forth. And so, it's really important as we go through change that we're not just focusing on the education, the compliance requirements. It's these interpersonal reflections and skills that we need to have to make that change. So when you are working with your team or working with members on change, how do you use those own life experiences and your path of this pivot to help others?
Yeah, so another really basic question, but interesting in so many ways to go. I do a fair amount of reading, and Stephen Covey and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of his habits is very, very simple, but seek first to understand, then be understood, and he has one around the end in mind. So sometimes you think about this all that's going on with digitalization of audit, digitalization of just about every profession, and automation, and what does it mean? It's important to kind of keep the end in mind, and don't change for change's sake. I mean, look, I'm really proud of the fact of what we've collectively done here at IMA to grow it over the last decade. We've doubled, tripled, quadrupled in size, but I think we've doubled, tripled, quadrupled in influence, respect, and relevance, and making a difference in people's lives and the lives of our members and professionals. And yet, when I think about change, we're taking a philosophy that our opportunity to make a difference, we're a purpose-driven organization, so it's purpose with profits, and, because no money, no mission, right? You have to have to fuel mission. So on one hand, it can't be change for change's sake, but on the other hand, sometimes when you've been incredibly successful like we have, and again, we collectively, you can't let down your guard, because in this business environment, with the challenges of and opportunities of digital, geopolitical risk, we have a huge business in China. Well, what's the latest in the news today on the trade war? Is that going to influence, the quest and the war on talent for getting the right interdisciplinary. So what I've learned, and I worked at AT&T for many years, where we did let down our guard and we did become a little bit too comfortable. When you get comfortable and you applaud yourself too much, and you don't have that same sense of urgency, because you might be doing well in terms of your product P&L and all that, but are you really creating an incredible experience for your members, for your customers? And the answer is always no. It's you might be satisfying some to a certain degree. So, you know, there's sort of two extremes we try to avoid when it comes to the case for change. One is you try to avoid panic. So if a new competitor launches a product that you hadn't expected, or there's a geopolitical risk, people expect more of their leaders than panic. The other extreme, though, is kind of like artificial harmony and complacency. Hey, you know what? We're big enough. We're strong enough. Let's kind of watch it and see what happens. The sweet spot is to try to create that everyday sense of urgency, because at the end of the day, from an end in mind perspective, it's not about this great product you delivered. It's about the value you delivered to some consumer of your products and services. Did you make a difference in their lives? Did you make a difference in societal norms and expectations? So, you know, we try to keep that passion, that relentless and unwavering spirit to achieve. We just closed our fiscal year and had an incredible year, but, you know, we applauded and got our bonuses, and now it's on to the next challenge, which is an enormous challenge.
Yeah. So so what I'm hearing from you is one, you know, if you feel yourself concerned or challenged, there's a pause there to really step back of why you're even feeling it, you know, rather than just going into that fear, you know, space, or pushing against something new, rather stepping back and saying, you know, why am I feeling this right now, and kind of assess it before you take action. And the second is to never be comfortable.
Right.
What I hear as well of, you know, we did great. Now, what are we going to do different? What are we going to keep working on? Where are opportunities? What else can we keep doing to keep improving? Is there anything else that you want to make sure that people walk away with as one of those big ideas, you know, to keep in mind?
Yeah, I think the other sort of related aspect to that, Amy, is you know, you think about innovation, right? And I know innovation could be a buzzword, and but innovation is a whole body of knowledge, and you know, it's very easy to fall into the commodity trap in the way we conduct business, in the way we deliver goods and services. And, you know, innovation is so critically important to differentiation and ultimately winning in the market. You know, this whole digital robotics and automation going to take jobs away. Well, yeah, we could choose to let that happen, but we could also choose to upskill and take on some real uncomfortable skill sets, you know, and here we go. We talk data scientists, and data scientists are becoming a major part of the accounting and finance profession, and we have an opportunity to actually make that happen. So innovation is a body of knowledge. There's lessons learned, there's good, there's bad, there's ugly, there's incremental, there's brand new creations. And I think an organization today has to be on the leading edge of just about everything innovation and technology. But you know what? At the end of the day, it all starts with people. It's people and processes that enable technology and innovation. One could argue it's the other way around, but I ultimately think it's people and their motivations and how they're inspired and how they are on this continuous quest to upskill themselves. You know, probably yesterday's accountant would say, I never signed up to be a statistician and to be a data scientist. Well, you better at least learn the language, or, you know, you were, quite frankly, maybe fit for purpose in a different era that has gone by.
Right. And I think too, just to go back to your original story, innovation can seem like this really big word, but what you did from taking yourself from being shy to pushing yourself to take a education program that was out of your wheelhouse, was out of your comfort zone, that's innovation. That is innovating who you are. And, so it can be lots of paths where you find like, these are the new skills or belief systems I need to break about myself in order to move to the next phase, in order to either help the organization, help me at home, whatever it is around people, but to not be afraid of the word innovation, that
Right.
it can be all sorts of paths that you take.
Yeah, and actually, not to typecast accountants and finance people, but we do by nature tend to be pretty analytical, and we know the rules and the generally accepted accounting principles and all that. So we tend to be not so arts and crafty, but very technical and analytical. Which could be doing a disservice to innovation. My favorite quote on innovation is from an author and a consultant. Unfortunately, she's since passed, Cynthia Barton Rabe, and she said in one of her books, "Don't let what you know limit what you can imagine." And just think about it. How many times you've been in a meeting or in a conversation where, and it could just be a regular meeting with a certain objective, or it could be a brainstorming greenfield. And you hear an idea to improve a process or to do something different that could create a greater outcome, and you're like, well, we don't have the money, don't have the resources. We won't get cooperation from X, Y, Z. So you don't even give the idea the chance to like germinate a little bit. And hold on, let's worry about the constraints a little later. Let's just talk about the idea.
Not get into the how.
Not get into the how, get into the, because sometimes we overthink early on and we squash ideas. And, at the end of the day, innovation starts with an idea. And, innovation also can be in contrast with, accounting sort of techniques such as risk management. Because at the end of the day, innovation is all about experimentation and taking risks, trial and error failures. So, innovation is a little more complicated than it might seem, and you could certainly hoodwink your board and your customers and your members, but not for too long, because at the end, they know what they're receiving as a product, service, or bundle from you. They know, and they're the ultimate arbiter. The customer, the member, they're the ultimate truth serum for all they hear from PR and annual reports and integrated reports. They're the ultimate truth serum.
Great. So this has been great. So I like to end with some just rapid fire questions, and you get to pick a category. So either in the category of your family, friends, or coworkers. Second category is money, spirituality, or health. So pick a category.
I'll pick the first one, family, friends, and coworkers.
Okay. All right. So just one thing, or actions I don't have that I want with my family, friends, or coworkers.
I don't have that I want. So in a perfect world, I'd have a complete harmonious, respectful. I think some could argue that a little bit of tension, a little bit of disagreement is good, and it probably is. But I can't say that, especially in my wife and I adopted two boys from two Hispanic boys and another girl, and so they have extended family. So we have this huge non-traditional extended family, definitely non-traditional. And so, if I could wish upon a star, I'd like some of the
harmony.
tension to But yeah, I guess that would be my answer.
Okay. What about the things that you have that you want as far as your family, friends, and coworkers?
Ultimately, at the core, foundationally, core values, who they are, what's inside their DNA as people. I have that, and I absolutely want that. So there's room to harmonize and smooth out the rough patches.
And then what about what you don't have that you don't want? So you don't want it to come into that area.
Right. So I don't want, and I don't have, and I don't want ever, core values, inner strength. I don't want people who don't take control of situations. I don't want people who ultimately have sort of hatred and take everything personally and look outside as opposed to inside. I think there's a lot of things you learn as a kid, growing up with good parents, how to respect, how to treat people with dignity. I know it's not as simple as that when you get into the wild, woolly world of, corporations and things, but I also don't think it's as hard as sometimes we make it seem.
Those are great answers. So thanks so much for sharing. Is there anything that you want to make sure listeners hear about IMA or follow up with things that you're doing that you'd like them to take note of before we end today?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say is, I love your book and your, business balance and bliss. I think there's a lot of stereotypes, and this kind of gets into the diversity and inclusion area, Amy. Mm-hmm. I think we tend to paint people with the same brush. So for example, work-life balance, we tend to sort of have this one brush that says, oh, you must balance. Everybody has their own ecosystem, their own situation. Ultimately, you've got to, do the right thing, take care of yourself, and influence and inspire people. And that is very much situation specific. And I think we need to stay away from the stereotypes of, what is the right balance, and you must achieve balance. Ultimately, I mean, I work hard. I enjoy what I do. I think I'm making a difference. My wife is retired. I think we're finding that bliss in the system, but I just don't get drawn into stereotypes, whether it's number of hours or right. Staying, like those that say, you absolutely should not stay connected. Maybe for some, but maybe like if I'm an early riser, and if I'm up before the rest of the family and I'm checking an email because I enjoy doing it, and I'm like, why is that a bad thing from a societal perspective that I don't keep my cell phone at home,
Right.
So I just think
that's exactly it. It's noticing what works for you, what gives you that release, and all the research is it's not about quantity of time, it's about quality, right?
Exactly.
It's the things you find. It might not be exercise. It can be. I mean, my husband likes to play his iPad games, and yeah. He's gotten up to so many levels. I think they wish he'd stop because he has to keep programming.
Sounds like he could be a professional gamer.
Exactly. Just on that one game. So.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, but I think in the end, it's all inside you to create the balance that works for you, for your ecosystem of friends, family, loved ones, colleagues, cohorts, et cetera, et cetera. And anyway, I think that's how I'd close.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your story, and also giving exposure to people if you haven't heard of the IMA before, and how they serve. Definitely look them up online. They're on social media as well, but they're a great organization and can really help you as an industry accountant, finance, whatever area that you're in, to help you in evolving your next phase. So thank you very much.
Okay, Amy, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.